When you first start playing Identity V, hunters seem way too overpowered. They can find you even when you think that they can't find you, you're nice and hidden. It feels almost impossible to rescue from chairs. They have tons of abilities and it feels like they can hit you even though they're nowhere near you. Well, in higher tiers in Identity V, hunters usually have a harder time at winning. And for this very reason, some hunters have been given bigger hitboxes than other hunters. And I wanted to put this to the test. I wanted to see how good each hunter's main attack was and how powerful their charged attack hitbox was. So let's begin. If you don't know what a hitbox is the invisible area in front of a hunter when they attack, that if you are within that area, you will receive the corresponding damage that hunter would deal. If you are outside of this area, then you don't get hit at all. Some hunters have bigger invisible areas or bigger hitboxes, and some hunters have shorter hitbox areas. Some of them can hit wider and some of them are more pinpoint in front of them. I will classify each hunter's hitbox from a scale from D to S, similar to the skins in Identity V, D being the worst and S being the best. And I will do this for both their normal attack and their charged attack, that is their longer animation but possibly further range attack. All of these rankings that I will give them will correspond to the tests that I have done and that you will see on screen as well. Depending on how many steps it took them to hit the target, I will give them a certain mark. One note, these tests can be very inaccurate and aren't exactly 100% foolproof, so make sure that you take this all with a grain of salt. This is all from my testing and I didn't spend an extensive time doing these tests. I just thought of one test and implemented it to see how the hunters would respond. Starting with Hellember. Hellember surprised me by having quite a decent range. His hitbox for his main attack was rather lackluster, but his charge attack had much more range than his base attack. His main attack receives a D, but his charged attack really does have a lot of range and receives a B. Surprisingly, he also has really terrible left and right hitboxes as well. So this means he can't hit someone who's directly to his left or directly to his right. It seems to be that his main attack and also his charge attack are very forward focused. Next up we have Smiley Face, whose main attack was rather generic, but his charge attack was very impressive. His main attack only receiving a C, but his charge attack almost being perfect, earning him an A. One thing that we noticed though is that his charge attack does seem to have a lot of range, but it doesn't hit either to his left or to his right. And it also seems that he favors hitting targets on his left. Ripper is slightly above most of the other hunters' hitboxes. Although his main attack doesn't really have much range to it, earning it a B, his charge attack really does, earning him an A for his charged attack. He also didn't miss any targets on his left or his right, so he also has a very wide hitbox. So I would call him an overall decent hitbox for a hunter. Gamekeeper was something that I was very interested in seeing the results of, and I would say he's very middle of the road. He's both decent with his normal attack and also with his charged ranged attack, both receiving a B. He also seems to favour hitting targets on his right, missing targets on his left completely. That is interesting because his animation does look like it should have more range to it. Now this is something that shocked me. Soulweaver is the hunter with the worst hitbox out of all the other hunters that I tested. Although her animation does look like it would have some decent range to it, her main attack only receives a D, and her charge attack only earns her a C. What does redeem her a little bit is that she can hit targets on either her left or her right, and it does seem to be a relatively wide hitbox. So this does make up for her very short range. Geisha is very famous for having a very narrow but long attack range. And this is something that survivors really abuse when tight kiting. It is quite easy to juke a geisha, juking being dodge in close range. In my testing, she is one of the hunters with the worst hitboxes, receiving both a C in her main attack and a C in her charged attack. Surprisingly, her main attack also doesn't hit any targets on her left or on her right. This would explain why she's really easy to juke, but her charge attack does seem to favour hitting people on her left rather than her right. So she arguably has one of the worst hitboxes in general. Feaster, I think everyone guessed the results to this one. From my testing, he has the best hitbox from all the other hunters in Identity V, receiving both an S in his normal attack and also in his charged attack. One problem he does have though is that his attack does have a lot of range, but he can't hit targets on his left or his right, in either his main attack or in his charged attack. So you could say that he arguably has the best hitbox. Wu Chang has two different forms, and each form has a very different hitbox, and you'll see in these results. Beginning with the Blackguard. The Blackguard really doesn't have much range and also doesn't have much width to his attacks, receiving a C for his normal attacks and a B for his charged attack. The White Guard, on the other hand, is infamous because of his hitbox, receiving an A for his main attack and an S for his charge attack. It has both distance and also has a lot of width to it. You'll be hit even if you feel like you're nowhere near the hunter. Talking about crazy hitboxes, now we have Photographer. From my testing, he only has a very decent main attack and a very decent ranged attack, mostly because his range isn't as far as you'd expect it to be, but the fact that his attack is such a long animation and has a lot of width to it means that most targets in front of him will get hit anyway. In both cases, he received a B from my testing. Also, for his charge attack, he does seem to prefer hitting targets on his left rather than his right, so there is a little bit of a hole for his charge attack. Now, the hitbox of Mad Eyes is one of the ones that surprised me the most. Although nobody really thinks of Mad Eyes as being much of a big hitbox character, he really does have a big hitbox, having very similar range to Wu Chang's White Guard, just not the same width. He earned an A for his main attack and an S for his ranged charged attack, but his main attack does have more width and his charge attack really can't hit anything on his left or his right, meaning it's more of a precise attack. The Dream Witch herself, well, technically actually her followers. I've got a good question down in the chat. If the Dream Witch body could attack, how do you think she would attack? Would she use her tail, her hands, or would she have some magical attack that she would use? What do you think? Unsurprisingly, because Dream Witch is one of the most played hunters and one of the powerfulest hunters in this game, she does have a weaker hitbox to be able to balance her as a character. She has one of the worst hitboxes out of all the hunters. She only receives a C in both normal attack and in charged ranged attack. But she does make up for it in the fact that she can hit easily either targets on her left or on her right with either normal or charged attack. Now, Axeboy has a bit of a strange hitbox. The animation itself makes it look like the attack should have much more range to it, yet it only receives a B in both categories. We also notice that his charged attack is quite narrow, so in most cases I do really think that it might be better just to use normal attack instead of ranged attack with him, unless there might be any special cases where you need that extra few centimeters to hit someone. I was very surprised that Lucino had a better hitbox than Soulweaver. As a Lucino main, also known as Evil Reptilian, I feel like he has one of the worst hitboxes in the game, and he really does, but not as bad as Soulweaver's. Hashtag buff Lucino's hitbox. Both for his normal attack and for his ranged attack he receives a C, putting him very below most other hunters, but just above Soulweaver. Also, surprisingly, his main attack has a lot more width to it, meaning that he can hit targets on his left and his right, and his charge attack really does seem useless, and from my experience of playing Lucino quite a lot, he really does have a very terrible charged attack, and it might be better just to use your normal attack. Bloody Queen, most people's favourite hunter in Identity V. She has a just below average hitbox. Her main attack only receives a C, and her charge attack receives a B, so she's middle of the road. But she really does make up for this for the fact that she can hit targets on her left and her right, and I do believe that I did not do in testing that her mirror's hitbox is much more impressive. Possibly similar to Wu Chang's White Guard hitbox, but I did not test this. The Robot Penguin Guard 26 has one of the worst looking animations for an attack, and maybe one of the least impressive looking attacks and animations in the whole of Identity V, yet his hitbox is surprisingly more decent than you would think it is. He receives a C in both categories, but he can easily hit targets on his left and his right, meaning he doesn't have much range, but he can hit targets close to him. What I found very interesting is that the Disciple, also known as Anne, has a quite good hitbox, receiving a very similar position to Ripper, a B for her main attack, and an A for her charged attack. She can also hit targets on either her left and her right, meaning that she has a wide attack range, so I would say she has a very powerful and really above average hitbox. Violinist has a very interesting attack animation, and just from the animation itself, it's very difficult to tell how good his hitbox would really be without testing him out. After some tests, he's slightly below average in his hitbox, receiving a C for his main attack and a B for his charge attack that is not too good, but also not too bad. Galatea, on the other hand, has one of the weirdest looking attack animations in the way that you can't really see it most of the time because it's her throwing a knife. If you pay close attention to her animation, it does seem to be much more of a narrow but long-ranged attack. From my testing, she only receives a B with her main attack and an A with her charge attack. That is quite impressive, but not super impressive. She also seems to prefer targets on her left when she's using her main attack, since she seems to throw her knife with her right hand. Our last, the most recent hunter, Percy, was very difficult for me to test when I was trying to maneuver bots around to do the test. From what I could tell from the tests that I could manage to complete, he has a decent hitbox, receiving give or take a B for his main attack and an A for his charge attack, yet he doesn't seem to have as much width to his hitbox as most other hunters, sometimes missing targets on his left and on his right. Once again, I want to repeat that these are not perfect tests and these results aren't completely true. They are from my testing, and I'm sure that if other people did tests, they might receive slightly different results. But it is still very interesting to see how hunters stack up to each other with their hitboxes, especially since this is something that survivors get to experience firsthand quite often. As of the recording of this video, Broken Wheel is just about to come out, or possibly just came out today when I record this. So where do you think he will be placed on this list? Do you think he'll have a lot of range or a lot of width to his attack? Tell me what you think down below in the comments. And if you find this information useful, please give this video a like. Subscribe if you'd like to find out some more information, some tips, some tricks, and maybe some secrets about Identity V that you didn't know. Take care, guys. Bye bye.